knowledge. And it's taking all that masses of data that's out there and providing information that is readily consumable by people to gain knowledge about whatever it is we're talking. So the things we do at Rivet are providing that knowledge by using standardized reporting, using taxonomies to create readily comparable metrics, so you can very quickly see a comparison from one company to another. So I'd say the goal of this transparency is to provide knowledge to the consumers.
There we go. So Anthony Holm, our regulator government guy, let's stay with that thought and ask you what lawmakers are thinking about reporting on sustainability. What's in all this transparency for government? Is it all about revealing something else they can tax?
Perhaps, yes. All I can do is offer my opinion. Nobody knows for certain. I will present evidence such as this. If you just do a generic poll and test of transparency, do you want more transparency, American voter? It's about an 80-20, absolutely. So a regulator or an elected entity can go out and say, we are making something more transparent and everyone is pleased. What does that mean, though? How are you really defining transparency? It goes, again, often to the standards that are out there that we began and opened up with. So we can all look at what is available and what is out there and saying it is more or less transparent, but it doesn't often, and in fact, I'll suggest more often than not, it fails to give us what we really need, whether it's consumers, whether it's investors, or whether it's people who want to make an informed decision of, is this green, is it sustainable, and is this really functioning? I believe corporations are doing it primarily, much as you indicated, to sell an outcome. You know, there's so much greenwashing going on. If people who are informed start digging through the actions that corporate America is actually taking and calling themselves green, you'd be appalled. I know this much about it. Everyone else in the room is probably more informed than I, and I'm disgusted. Yet I'm still the guy driving the corporate train. So I encourage everyone to jump in there and have a look. And does that answer, or relatively answer? It's very difficult. I think most of the regulators and most of the elected bodies want to be able to go back to their constituencies and say, we are making it more transparent. We're allowing you access to information. But they don't really have a plan, and we need to force them to.
And it is possible that there's a taxation motive behind the scenes.
Oh, absolutely. Not possible, it's probable. Look, government needs more taxes, always. That's a uniform statement. Our government, at the federal and state levels, really need more taxes, particularly over the next 25 years. We have something going on here in Texas, Amazon. They had a server in North Texas that was processing e-commerce. The state of Texas is broke, and they happen to be in session 5 months out of every 2 years. We're right in the middle of it. They said, guess what? You owe us 150, 184 million, something like that, for all the e-commerce that's flown through the server in North Dallas. Amazon turned around and said, well, we were about to build a facility here and bring a bunch of great jobs. Goodbye. And they're disputing it. So yes, transparency is going to lead to money grabs and power by government. That's the nature of government and regulation.
Not to be too cynical or anything, but
call it what it is.
Okay, Aaron Mees from Interface. I've got to admit a soft spot for Interface Group because I've spent a lot of time with your founder Ray Anderson, and as one of the most energy-intense and toxic content-intense manufacturing processes in the world. 15 years ago, when Ray was the CEO, he had this legendary spear in the chest moment when he read the book, The Ecology of Commerce, by an author named Paul Hawken out on the West Coast. And it inspired him to revolutionize carpet manufacturing, to go to closed-loop manufacturing, to use the recycled content to create new carpet. Now, can you tell us how, Aaron, Ray's experience has manifested itself in Interface's corporate culture, and how does it impact how you report results to your stakeholders?
Sure. Well, you know, he had this epiphany when he was 60 years of age, and what led to this exploration for him was the fact that we began to hear it from our customers, and that's very important. It was the power of one question from your customer. What is your company doing for the environment? And our salespeople in California had no idea how to answer that. It was, you know, like early 90s, we had no idea, right? It was coming up in projects. We're a company who's thinking about a green facility, we want it to be greener. What's your company doing for the environment? So we did what most companies do. We created a task force. So that's going to fix everything. And then we asked, our CEO, Ray, to come and give them a vision. So in the course of sort of exploring what is the environmental vision for the company, he'd fallen back on what regulators tell us it should be, which is we obey the environmental laws. The book came across his desk, and he had this transformational experience. So what that meant for applying sustainability at our company means when you're on the receiving end of an epiphany, you go full Monty. So at the company, it became a centralized focus of who we are and what we do. And I would contrast that to CEOs nowadays who are either saying, I have to respond to what we're doing on sustainability because it's a market issue, we need to have a green story, or there's a risk about not doing it. So those kinds of companies, those are going to be the incrementalists. They're going to say, well, we have to have a green story, we have to respond to the risk, let's reduce our CO2 emissions an incremental amount. 5%, 10%, 20%. Let's set a goal and then let's talk about it. That's not what happened at our company. We fundamentally looked at ourselves and said, if we were to design a system that could work in concert with nature, and we looked to nature to sort of figure that out, what would it look like? And how would we design a framework and apply it at every level of the company? So that's what we did. So not surprisingly, that technical approach and that sort of full Monty in has been the way that we've communicated our story and how we report to people. So what that means is how we tell our story, and the way that we tell our story and the way that we report about sustainability is fundamentally very different. It's all details, very technical, any sort of information you want on waste, energy, carbon emissions, the life cycle impacts of our products. We have all of that available. Now the challenge is that's hugely overwhelming for most consumers. And so we walk a fine line because most people don't want that level of information. But our style and the way that we approach it has been, this is kind of what we have. But I think the second thing that's been really unique and powerful is the way that we tell our story. So about 16 years ago, we did one of the first sustainability reports. And it certainly wasn't what they are now, which is, these are all the good things we're doing. Here's our sort of sediment pond, and there's a family of ducks that have taken residence here, and we're a wonderful company, right? Ours was about, our system is broken. We're part of a really polluting, horrible force, and we need to change the system. And it was just putting our philosophy out there. And the way that we told our story was that our founder went around and simply told our story. In the early days, we weren't allowed to talk about the progress that we had made. Our founder said, if it gets to the sales guys, it will become something much different on the other end. So for about 5 or 6 years, no one in the company was allowed to talk about some of the early progress we've made to reduce waste, to change out energy systems. We were just so afraid that it would get perverted. So the only marketing that we did was our founder went around, and Jace talked about it, Ray Anderson, and he told our story. He told his story, and he told the story of Interface and what we were doing. And to this day, that's been the most powerful thing. I mean, I was on a bus last night with some guys from Germany, and everyone's talking about all the cool technology jobs they have, and they get around me, and I say, well, I work for a carpet company. And they say, do you know this guy named Ray Anderson? And I was like, that's who I work for. So that, to me, it's just, you can't buy that goodwill.
That's marvelous. Well, it's amazing the story about Ray trying to protect the company from the evil salespeople. You don't want the salespeople telling the story. So let's go to the technologist, Philip Winterberg from Ribbon Software. As Ribbon's CIO, Chief Information Officer, you cast your lot with those who believe that technology can lead us out of the dark ages and of carbon-free, or cost-free carbon, and obliviousness to environmental impact of our companies. Is that how you see yourself? A technology can cure what ails you, Guy?
I wouldn't say technology cures all ails, but technology certainly helps. Innovation is certainly the way forward. But what technology does do is we sort of characterize with 3 terms. Collect, connect, and communicate. We collect data from a variety of sources. We then connect that data across disparate systems, whether that's financial and non-financial. And then we communicate that information and that knowledge back out to the consumers. So using technology, you can create this transparency of information. And just to give you a parallel, some of the work that we've been doing recently with the SEC's